The first snow of December drifted lazily past my window, painting the town in soft white silence. Christmas was only a week away, and I had already set out the old decorations. The porcelain angel my late husband had bought during our first year together, the lights that twinkled around the window, the pine, scented candles that filled the house with warmth. I thought, for once, we would all be together again. But when my daughter, Eliza, walked in that morning, her tone already told me something was wrong. She was glowing not with Christmas joy, but with excitement of a secret plan. Her husband, Ryan, followed behind, typing on his phone as usual, not even glancing at me. "Mom." Eliza began sweetly, "We've been meaning to tell you. We're taking the kids to Switzerland for Christmas. A big family vacation." I smiled, pretending happiness. "Oh, that sounds lovely," I said softly. "When do we leave?" Her face faltered. "Oh, no, Mom, you're not coming with us." The room grew quiet. The clock ticked loudly, echoing against my chest. "Not coming," I repeated. "Ryan's stepfather just had surgery," she explained, as if she were doing me a favor. "He needs someone responsible to take care of him while we're gone. You're the only one I trust, Mom. We'll only be away 2 weeks. 2 weeks." Alone on Christmas, I nodded slowly, hiding the sting behind my polite smile. "Of course, dear, family comes first." They left 2 days later, laughter and luggage filling the air, while I stood by the door waving goodbye. As the car disappeared down the snowy road, I returned to the silent house. The emptiness felt heavier than ever. That evening, the doorbell rang. A nurse stood there, pushing an elderly man in a wheelchair. "Arthur, my son-in-law's stepfather?" His face was stern, his eyes sharp behind silver-rimmed glasses. "This is Mrs. Harris," the nurse said. "She'll be caring for you." Arthur merely nodded, his gaze studying me as if measuring my worth. The first few hours were painfully awkward. He refused most of the food I cooked, barely spoke, and sat near the fire with an unreadable expression. I told myself to stay patient. It wasn't his fault. Still, I couldn't shake the ache of being left behind by the very people I had raised and loved. That night I scrolled through social media, watching Eliza's smiling face as she stood in front of the Swiss Alps with her children. "Best Christmas ever," the caption read. My heart cracked. When I brought Arthur his tea, he looked up and said, almost quietly, "They shouldn't have left you alone for Christmas." It was the first kind thing anyone had said to me in weeks. I gave him a small smile. "Sometimes," I replied, "love is not returned the same way it's given." He nodded slowly, his eyes thoughtful. I didn't know then that this lonely Christmas would change everything, that the man sitting by my fireplace would uncover truths that would destroy the illusions I had built my family around. First few days passed in uneasy silence. Arthur rarely spoke, and when he did, his words came out clipped and formal. I cooked him meals, helped him take his medication, and made sure he was comfortable. Yet his sharp eyes seemed to study every move I made. He wasn't rude, just distant, as though he had lived long enough to distrust everyone. I often caught him watching me as I hummed while cleaning or setting his tray. Once, when I slipped on the kitchen tiles, he quickly reached out to steady me. For a moment, his coldness cracked, revealing concern. "You should be more careful," he murmured. We began sharing tea in the evenings by the fireplace. The house that once echoed with laughter now whispered only the sound of the kettle boiling and snow brushing against the windows. The first conversation we had beyond polite exchanges began with a simple question. "Do you always spend Christmas alone?" he asked one night. I laughed softly, though the sound felt hollow. "Not always, but lately, yes. My daughter has her own family now. I suppose I've become convenient when needed." He studied me, his brow furrowing. "You remind me of someone," he said finally. "Someone who gave too much until she had nothing left." I looked at him, surprised. "Your late wife?" He nodded slowly. "Yes. She believed love could fix selfish hearts. but love alone can't change people who choose not to value it. His words sank deep into me. It was as if he had read my soul. For years, I had excused Eliza's carelessness, telling myself that she was busy or tired. But deep down, I knew she took my love for granted. The next few days, Arthur began helping in small ways. He insisted on folding his blanket, sometimes even setting the table, though his hands trembled. We talked about music, memories, and the way Christmas used to feel when families stayed together. He told me stories about his younger days, his success in business, his regrets as a father, and the loneliness that money couldn't cure. "You have a good heart, Mary," he told me once, calling me by my first name for the first time. "Don't let them make you feel invisible." That night, I went to bed lighter. It felt strange, but comforting, as if this stranger, left in my care, somehow cared for me. A week later, a small snowfall covered the garden in soft white powder. I wrapped a shawl around Arthur's shoulders and wheeled him outside. The sky glowed pale silver. It was quiet and peaceful. "You know," he said, looking up at the stars, "I've been pretending to be weaker than I am." I turned to him, startled. "What do you mean?" He smiled faintly. "Let's just say I wanted to see how people treat others when there's nothing to gain." I didn't understand what he meant then, but something in his eyes told me this Christmas was far from ordinary, and that the truth, when it came, would shatter everything I thought I knew about my family. When Eliza and Ryan returned from their trip, the house that had been so peaceful suddenly felt suffocating again. Their laughter filled the halls, loud and false, while the scent of expensive perfume clung to the air. Eliza hugged me briefly, her arms stiff. "Oh, Mom, thank you so much for helping out," she said, already glancing past me to Arthur. Did he behave? Arthur didn't answer. He just looked at her, long, steady, and unreadable. Ryan patted my shoulder with that practiced smile of his. "You've been wonderful, Mary, truly. We couldn't have managed without you." But his tone was distant, almost rehearsed. Something in my gut told me they weren't here just to say thank you. Over dinner, I watched them exchange subtle looks. My daughter's laughter was forced, her husband's voice slick and overconfident. Arthur barely spoke, but I could tell he was observing everything. Later that night, Ryan called me into the study, the same room where my late husband and I had spent decades building dreams. The fireplace crackled as he slid a few documents toward me. "Mary," he began, his voice smooth, "I've been taking care of some legal matters for the family. To make things easier, we've transferred the property title into our name. You won't have to worry about taxes or maintenance anymore." My stomach twisted. "What do you mean transferred?" He smiled thinly. "It's all taken care of. You signed the forms last month." "I never signed anything." I snapped, my voice trembling. Eliza appeared at the door, her face pale. "Ryan, maybe we should?" He cut her off. "Don't act like you don't remember, Mary. You're getting older. Mistakes happen." For a moment, the world tilted. My heart pounded so hard I could barely breathe. My daughter, my only child, stood silent while her husband accused me of forgetfulness to justify stealing my home. I stumbled to my room, tears blurring my vision. The walls felt like they were closing in. Everything my husband and I had built, every sacrifice I had made, gone, stolen by the people I trusted most. The next morning, I found Arthur waiting for me in the kitchen. His cane rested against the counter, though he was standing tall, steady, and strong. For the first time, I realized he wasn't as frail as he had seemed. I heard everything. He said quietly, "You didn't sign those papers, they forged them." My breath caught. "How do you know?" He handed me a folder filled with documents. "Because I've been watching them, Mary, and because Ryan is my biological son, not just my stepson." The words hit me like thunder. I wanted to see if he'd changed. Arthur continued. I wanted to know if he'd learned compassion. Instead, he tried to cheat the only person who's shown me kindness. I stared at him, speechless. Arthur's eyes softened. I may have made mistakes in my past, but this I will make right. And as he spoke, I felt something shift inside me, not just pain, but the slow, steady spark of justice waking within. The next few days felt like living in the calm before a storm. Arthur moved quietly, making phone calls and sending emails from the study. His frail act was gone, replaced by the composure of a man in control. I didn't ask questions. I simply trusted him. There was something in his eyes, a steady determination that told me he wasn't going to let this go. On the third morning, a sleek black car pulled up in front of the house. 2 men in suits stepped out, followed by a woman with a leather briefcase. Ryan's confident grin faltered when they introduced themselves as Arthur's lawyers. Ryan Hawthorne. One of them said crisply, "We have evidence of property fraud and forgery under your name." Eliza gasped. "What? That's impossible." Arthur entered the room then, cane in hand, his posture regal. "It's very possible," he said coldly. "I know because I watched you both lie to this woman, the same woman who cooked for you, prayed for you, and raised your children with love." Ryan stuttered. You set us up?" "No," Arthur replied, his tone calm but firm. "You exposed yourselves. I simply gave you the chance to show who you truly are." He handed over the documents I'd seen earlier, copies of the forged signatures, the bank transactions, and even recorded calls Ryan had made boasting about taking the old woman's house. Every lie, every manipulation was laid bare. Eliza broke down first. "Dad, please." She cried, clutching at Arthur's sleeve. "We didn't mean for it to go this far." Arthur stepped back. "You meant every word. You just never thought you'd be caught." The lawyers explained that Arthur had already transferred the property rights back to my name and filed charges to protect me from future claims. Ryan's business accounts were frozen, and his reputation was already crumbling under investigation. I stood there, shaking, tears streaming down my face, not just from relief, but heartbreak. "I never wanted this," I whispered. "I only wanted my family to love me." Arthur turned to me, his expression softening. "Sometimes love must be burned to reveal the truth beneath it. You deserved honesty, not loyalty born of greed." That evening, after the chaos subsided and the house grew quiet again, Arthur found me by the fireplace. The glow reflected in his eyes, eyes that once seemed cold but now held warmth. "I'm sorry you had to go through this," he said. "But I needed to make things right for both of us." I looked at him, grateful beyond words. "You already have." Months passed. Eliza and Ryan moved away, burdened by their own disgrace. They sent occasional letters of apology, which I couldn't bring myself to answer. Some wounds take longer to heal than time allows. Arthur visited often. We shared long walks, warm tea, and laughter that felt honest, something I hadn't known in years. One snowy December night, he brought a small silver star ornament and placed it atop my Christmas tree. "For the woman who reminded me what kindness looks like," he said quietly. As the fire crackled and snow fell softly outside, I realized that loneliness had left me, replaced by peace, by justice, and perhaps even by the faint spark of love. This Christmas I wasn't forgotten. I was finally free.